always been well above the national average in terms of census response. But in the latest recording, if you will, of where we stand, we are right now below the national average for large cities, I believe. The national average is 50%. We are at 48%. So we are gathering here today for a call to action, asking all of our residents to fill out their census form. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's important. There are literally millions, tens of millions of dollars at stake because so many programs, both at the national level and at the state level, are determined by population. And it's important that our residents be counted. So I want to thank everybody who's been involved in this. We launched it on April 1st of 2019. We launched a complete count committee, and we've got several representatives who have been involved in that from the beginning. But this is important. One of the things that I always mention is if you go back to the New Testament and you go back to the birth of Jesus, they being Mary and Joseph, were returning to their birthplace for the census that Caesar had ordered. So you can go all the way back to when BC became BC or AD, and the census is relevant to that. You can also look at our United States Constitution that talks about a census every 10 years. So this has got incredibly strong historic context, but it's really about the future of this community and making sure that our residents are counted and we get the resources that we need. So clearly our Milwaukee team has a lot more work to do. If we're at 48% now, I want that number to climb significantly. And these are important team captains that are going to help us do that. But please complete your census today or this weekend. With most residents, again, it's going to probably take you 10 minutes or less. You can also respond online, which is exactly what I did at 2020census.gov. And you can do it by phone at 1-844-330-2020. Again, I found doing it at the computer at 2020census.gov was remarkably easy. So this is something you only have to do once every 10 years, and we ask you to do it. So I want to introduce the speakers who are really well positioned or best positioned to address the following issues. I'm going to ask Marilyn Sanders, who's with the Regional Director of the U.S. Census Bureau Chicago Regional Office, and she's going to address some nuts and bolts issues. Again, what the census is, the timeline. She'll also share some information about how Milwaukee and Wisconsin are performing. Next, we'll hear from our new Common Council President, Cavalier Johnson, and he's going to talk about the importance of this at the local level and all the different programs that we're going to be able to benefit from. Sharon Robinson and Matt Dannenberg are the Complete Count Committee co-chairs, and I want them to talk about their work. And then finally, I want Karina Blas from the consulate, the Mexican consulate, and Paul Vang to talk about it from the perspective of different ethnic groups. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marilyn and ask you to say a few words, Marilyn. Thank you very much for joining us.
Marilyn's joining us via phone call, so I just want to remind her she has the ability to unmute herself. I think that's her right there.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mayor Barrett, and all of you who have joined here today. We are excited to continue marching toward getting a complete and accurate census for 2020. There are many things underway in light of the COVID-19. The Census Bureau has adjusted their operational schedule, and I'm going to mention just a few of the key dates that are changed. So our self-response phase, which is from March 12th through October 31st. So we've extended the self-response phase. In terms of our group quarters enumeration, and that's specifically where we enumerate those that are not living in single-family homes, but maybe living in a group environment. So that operation has been extended from April 2nd through September 3rd. And then the non-response follow-up operation, which is our major field data collection, is for all non-responding households. And that timeline now is from August the 11th through October 31st. So many of our operations are being retooled and planned in light of the COVID-19 concerns that we have. Of course, we as an agency remain focused on protecting the health and the safety of the American public and the Census Bureau employees. But the 2020 census is underway. Responses to the census are critically important, as we all know. We are tracking self-response rates nationwide, and we're tracking this to help ensure a complete and accurate count so that we can mobilize the populations that are under responding at this point to motivate them and encourage them to conduct a self-response by going online, by phone, and by mail. So starting around April the 8th, we started mailing out questionnaires to households that had not responded. That mail out will continue through April 30th. So right now is an excellent opportunity to push the message that if you get that questionnaire in the mail because you had not responded, please respond upon receipt of that questionnaire. When state, local, and communities work together, we can achieve a complete count of everyone. You can respond in the safety of your home, as the mayor alluded to. Practicing social distancing, we encourage everyone to be counted. So all across the nation, people are stepping up and responding to the census. Our national response rate as we speak today is at 51.6%, with Wisconsin being at 58.4% right now, and Milwaukee being at 48.8%. The work is still before us that we need to completely voice the message clearly that now is the time to be counted. The decisions that will be made for the next 10 years are dependent on the data that we collect. As we move forward in this process, we continue to inform that the census results are used for planning, they're used for funding, decisions that are made in our community that are critical during this pandemic, specifically as hospitals and health clinics and healthcare. As these services are provided, census data informs these decisions that are so critical to our community. As we look at block grant funding, new construction for hospitals and roads, these are all reasons why it's important that we message and voice that we need to be counted, and the census is currently underway. So in our communities that are more not inclined to participate in the census, this is where the virtual communication, the social communication, the one-on-one conversations that we can have over the telephone or over social media are so important. We want to continue to push a complete count in the midst of this pandemic. We know that the opportunity is there to respond online, by phone, or by mail, as we continue to look at operations that we need to retool. I didn't speak a lot about some of what we call our service-based enumerations, such as those operations that are particularly focused on individuals that do not live in homes but live in other places. Those particular operations are right now still being discussed in terms of how we're going to move forward. But I do want to mention that with the nursing homes not being accessible, and we're in the midst of group quarters enumeration, there is an opportunity for e-response. So those facilities can respond online as well through what we call GQE e-response. All of us working together, I am confident of the work that's been done by the Complete Count Committee for the City of Milwaukee, by the mayor, the many conversations that we've had, and I am so grateful and thankful for everyone on this call helping us to achieve our mission as mandated, and that is to count everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this meeting, press meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sanders, and thank you for your hard work. We appreciate it very much. Next, let's go to our brand new Common Council President, Cavalier Johnson, to talk a little bit about this from his perspective. President Johnson.
Mayor, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Marilyn, as well. I appreciate having the opportunity to join in on this call, especially for the fact that my family received our census questionnaire pretty early in the process. And much like the mayor alluded to, it took less than 10 minutes to fill it out for the 5 people who live in my household. I was very pleased when I got the questionnaire via the mail that there were options, flexible options for folks to be able to fill it out as well. You could do it by the mail. You could also have the opportunity to do it online as well, which is the option that I chose. It was very quick, it was very easy, and we got everybody counted. It's important for folks in Milwaukee to make sure that they fill out the census because when Milwaukeeans fill out the census, we have an opportunity to tap into all of this vast federal resources to help promote programs here in Milwaukee. Programs including things like schools and healthcare and housing and so many other things. And I want to just to piggyback just for a moment because on what Dr. Sanders said, because children are actually one of the most hardest counted populations in the census, year over year when this is performed. And as a dad to 3 children under 10, a 9-year-old boy and twin daughters who are just 2 years old now, I understand how important it is to make sure that those children are accounted for in this as well, so that we can bring back resources that will benefit them, especially as it relates to children's health care, schooling, and the like, WIC programs and the like. So I just wanted to chime in and let folks know that it's important to do that, not just for ourselves, because we think about it in terms of adults when we fill this out, but what it means for the impact on young children in our community too. So with that, I just wanted to chime in and let folks know that it's quick, it's easy, it's important for Milwaukee. It's important to bring resources back here to help out our community, from our senior citizens down to our youngest children. And I hope that every person in Milwaukee takes the opportunity to fill out their census, either do it by mail or use one of the other flexible options to make sure that all of us are counted. And I want to thank the mayor, I want to thank Dr. Sanders, I want to thank Sharon Robinson, and everybody participating in the complete count committee for everything you've done so far and everything that you'll do in the future. I know we're going to get that number up in Milwaukee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the Complete Count Committee, which is a great tongue twister, is led by Sharon and Matt. And they're the ones that really are spearheading the work that's being done here. So I'm going to turn it over to both of you. Sharon?
Yeah, I am the chair, Sharon Robinson. I'm the chair of the Complete Count Committee. And essentially, last year, as the mayor said, he formed the Complete Count Committee. So we've been hard at work for about a year. And what our job is we mobilize the community to make sure every single resident in the Milwaukee area is counted. And as some of the other speakers have noted, the census is very, very important because Wisconsin receives about $12.6 billion annually each year based on the census. And for every resident that goes uncounted, we will be risking losing about $1,600 every year for each person over the 10 years that goes uncounted. So as the chair of the Complete Count Committee, and again, I'm joined by Matt Dannenberg, and I'll let him speak as well, we want other people to join our team because we need every single willing and able adult in this community to spread the word about the importance of the census. Again, we still have time. The canvassers won't be going out and knocking on doors until late this summer. So we want to encourage everyone to do the self-response. And again, you can do it online or by phone.
Great, thank you. Matt, Captain?
Thanks, Mayor Barrett. Thanks, Sharon. Hey, everybody, Captain Census here. So at Wisconsin Voices, we've been very busy making sure that everyone is counted. Our mission and vision is to make sure that everybody has a voice in our democracy. And so it's been a very busy month with the pandemic, and then we had the big spring election. So our message is, one, we're working with our partners to make sure community members have what they need. And that is ultimately our number one focus, and taking those conversations, making sure folks have what they need, and connecting that to the census. And so, you know, number one, we've hit it on the head here about the government resources that come to our communities count on the census. And so we want to make sure that every household counted and that we get that 48.8% up in our neighborhoods. And so what we're encouraging folks to do is stay home, sanitize, and self-respond while you're catching up on that TV. You know, as you're chilling, fill out your census questionnaire. As you're catching up with your family and friends, as many of us are doing these days, strike up a conversation about the census. Check in on them, see how they're doing, and connect the census and the resources that our communities are depending on to them, and let them know how important it is that they fill out the census for their household. Right now at Wisconsin Voices, we have a ton of resources we're getting from national partners about how to reach out to your communities via social media. So if there's any assistance folks in the Complete Count Committee need, community organizations or neighborhood groups need to reach out to your folks, we're happy to work with you on those social media messaging. And then we're going to be working to strategize now with our extended timeline on how when we can get back out into the neighborhood, how we can be interacting with folks face-to-face to get up the count over this summer when things hopefully return back to normal. So be well, be safe, and keep spreading the word about the importance of the census, and call on Captain Census if you need anything.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you. Two important representatives are on this phone call as well, Karina and Paul. Obviously, in the current political environment, immigrants and people have concerns about dealing with the government. Can you talk about that issue and talk about the importance for the people you serve to fill out the census? We'll ask you first, Karina, and then we'll ask you, Paul. Karina?
First of all, thank you, Major, and thank you for making us part of this CCC committee for the census. And if you don't mind, I will speak in Spanish in order to reach our Latino community.
Muy bien.
Gracias. Bueno, primero que nada, quiero dirigirme a la comunidad latina en Wisconsin para hacerles un llamado y que aprovechen este tiempo para responder el censo, que es muy fácil. Lo pueden hacer a través de internet, en línea, lo pueden hacer a través del teléfono o lo pueden hacer a través de correo postal. No les va a quitar más de 10 minutos, así que son 9 preguntas que tienen que responder. Yo ya lo hice y es importante. ¿Por qué? Porque de esto va a depender los recursos que se le asignen al Estado, considerando 10 años. Entonces es importante, el censo se realiza cada 10 años y los recursos disponibles para cada estado dependen del conteo de la población que se haga. Recuerden que los recursos son utilizados para los servicios de salud, de educación, de transporte, entre otros. Entonces, por favor, los invitamos a que respondan el censo a la brevedad. Ya muchos están recibiendo en sus casas recordatorios y en estos días también pues el cuestionario, la papeleta realmente con las preguntas para que ustedes puedan contestar si es que no lo han hecho. Recuerden que si no responden antes de, bueno, la fecha límite para contestarlo es hasta octubre 31, pero alrededor de agosto, si no han contestado, van a tener la visita de un censista para hacerles el cuestionario. Así que aprovechen ahorita que estamos en casa y respondan el censo. Recordarles también que la semana pasada, del 13 al 18 de abril, tuvimos la semana latina de acción del censo, el Latino Census Week of Action, del 13 al 18, y durante esta semana estuvimos promoviendo a través de nuestras redes sociales que se contestara el cuestionario y la importancia del por qué hacerlo, además de mencionarles que pues esto es confidencial, que la información no se comparte con otras autoridades y que tiene fines estadísticos. Así que recuerden, nosotros existimos, así que contamos, los latinos y las latinas contamos, así que les pedimos que se hagan contar y nos hagan contar a todos. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Milwaukee Complete Count Committee, for having me. So I'd like to speak on behalf of the Southeast Asian refugee families here in Milwaukee. For over 40 years, tens of thousands of Southeast Asian refugees have resettled here in Milwaukee. Our families work here, our children go to school here, and now we call Milwaukee home. And we want to stress to our community that in order to make Southeast Asian folks better served here in the city of Milwaukee, it is really important that our families fill out the census. As other speakers have noted here, a complete census count would increase funding for the amount of for government programs that our community depends upon, programs that affect housing, food, and healthcare. If we fill out the census, we can make sure that our Southeast Asian community receives the assistance that they need. Also, by taking the census, our Southeast Asian community has the opportunity to tell our story. Refugee communities are often overlooked by society as a whole, and largely that's because there exists little to no data for members of our community. Taking the census is one way that we can make sure that our community is visible and represented at the local, state, and national level. And lastly, we want to remind our Southeast Asian community that citizens and non-citizens need to be counted on the census. For those of you who are concerned about your data being used against you, you can be assured that your data is protected by law and that individual data cannot be shared with other government agencies. So thank you for having me. Let's make sure our Southeast Asian community is counted. Make sure to take the census.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you. We've got a couple of questions here from the media. And maybe, Sharon, I'll ask you this, or Captain Census. Can you talk about some of the challenges the pandemic has caused for census operations? And specifically, when will door-to-door census operations begin in Milwaukee?
I can definitely address, the fact that the door-to-door operations have been.
Okay. I'm off again. I'm sorry. I'm having technical difficulties, but so we have had, COVID hasn't hindered the Census Bureau's ability to launch the census. As you noted earlier, it was officially launched on March 12th. But due to the stay-home orders, it has created some difficulty in terms of mobilizing people on the ground. But the good thing about the census, as some of you have stressed, is that it's easy, and it's while you're at home during the COVID order. I can't think of an easier way to take part in the census by simply just doing it online or either calling by phone. So again, thank goodness that it's not just one option, like to take part in the census. It's quick, it's easy, it's safe, so we can definitely overcome the challenges that are resulting from the COVID pandemic just by simply exercising all of those options. And I just want to stress once again, too, that it's your constitutional right to be counted.
Okay, anything you want to add,
And
Captain?
Yeah, and on the door-to-door operation specifically, they were supposed to start in May, but now, as the regional director said, they will be starting in August. I believe August 11th will be the non-response follow-up, where the Bureau will send their staff out door-to-door. And of course, as we know, we're getting new news about the pandemic weekly, so we'll keep vigilant about any updates or if things get pushed back further. But then folks have until October 31st to respond to the census.
Great, great. Then the question is, where is the city of Milwaukee usually in census responses percentage-wise? Where were we in 2010? Where were we in 2000? If either of you can remember that, as I recall, we did very well. But do either of you know specifically where we were?
I think Marilyn Sanders may be good to address that question, because there have been some issues, obviously, with counting students, homeless population. So she may be best to take that question.
One thing I can chime in while the directors on is looking at some of the historic data. Our 2010 final response rate for Wisconsin was 73.5%. So right now we're at 58%, so we have some room to grow there. But for Milwaukee, I don't have that answer off the top of my head.
My recollection is we did very well in contrast to other major cities, and my goal is we do the same. Obviously, our response rate was one of the highest in the nations. And our goal, not only as a city, as a region, but as a state, is to continue to do the great job we've done. And it happened because people responded in a very positive way. And that's our goal. So that's our final message is, let's do it. Let's get this done. And let's win the title as the state and the community with the highest response. Thank you all very, very much for joining us.